ပဲဆရာဆရာမတဲ့ဥဒ္ဒါဘောကတိတ်ယူနေကွာရန်ကုန်တိုင်းတဲ့ဥဒ္ဒါဆရာနိုင်တော့တဲ့ပါဝဲကျွန်တော်တကယ်ဆရာဆရာမများနဲ့တယောက်လာတဲ့မိတ်ဆွေများတော့မင်္ဂလာပါလို့ဆက်လိုက်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော် presentation ကိုတော့တန်းနိုင်တော့ကျွန်တော်အင်္ဂလိပ်လိုစူးစမ်းပြီးပြောပါမယ်တကယ်လို့နားမလည်တာရှိရင် presentation ပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်မြန်မာလိုမေးလို့ရပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်မြန်မာလိုပြန်ဖြေပေးပါမယ် Good morning ladies and gentlemen. This is my first experience to get a lecture here and this is my honor to get a chance as a speaker here in the Yangon Dental Festival 2017. Actually, I was born in the Delta region of this country. My town is Molomyang, and you can see in the map at the Yamudi region that I was born. And now I live in Mandalay for the government servant for 15 years ago at the University of General Medicine as a lecturer at the Department of Orthodontics. This is my department. And then today I would like to share my knowledge about the temporary Anchorage device. Actually, the basic facts, and then the things when do we really need and how to apply. So actually, the temporary Anchorage devices is the biomechanics of the orthodontics. The matter of the biomechanics is very hard to learn about the title under the title of the orthodontics, but I would like to explain very simply and very roughly about the types, and then the complication about the tests, and then the history of the tests, and then the anatomy we have to consider when do we apply the tests into the clinical situations, and then the indication when do we do for that, and the procedure to learn about the insertion for that. In the history, in 1969 that I was born, the Linka used a mandibular analysis plate implant in a class 2 patient to retract the upper incisor. The Linka is a great surgeon and he invented most of the head type of the various design to produce the tooth movement in 1969 and 1968. They invented a lot of design. In 1980, the research paper will come out about the temporary Anchorage devices in the field of orthodontics incorporated with the dental implant and the CRICMA and ECMA through a concept of the skeletal Anchorage devices in orthodontic field. It places a titanium screw under the nasal spine, which has been used as the intermaxillary fixation after the orthodontic surgery and the intruded maxillary incisor. Actually, the researchers in the field of the biomechanics and the orthodontics, the James Robert is the great person, and he invented the intrusion of the lower anterior incisor by the use of the temporary Anchorage devices. Still from the 1984, I met him at the 2013 WIOC conferences, and the James Robert is now working at the Illinois University. And he's also the center of the research about the biomaterials, and he's actually an expert of the bioengineering and the orthodontics professor also. And then a lot of the researchers were done, but mostly at the last 15 years ago, it's become popular in the field of the orthodontics as the clinical applicable use of the titanium implant actually. Most of the titanium implant was under the research of the titanium implant and the most materials becomes popular in the ceramic biodegradable material such as the polyactite, Vitellium and the Ticonium also researchers done for the research for the clinical application as used for the tests. The several kinds of tests has been marketed in the different companies, but however, the mini screw made from the titanium 6 by titanium 4 aluminum alloy has gained acceptable among the orthodontists, and the patient became, because of their biocompatibility, little discomfort, relatively non-invasive, and the fewer limitation in the placement of the mini screws. Actually, the mini screw is different from the dental implant, and in the price also, and the time of use is very temporary. And then for the space in the dentition is not related. We can insert everywhere, and then we have to be used and conveniently and planned for according to the treatment objectives and the treatment mechanics. And then the prosthesis, this is not the prosthesis, it is the part-time use of the application for the orthodontic force to be applied for the as slight as an EOT, the extra oral forces. And osseointegration, most of the implant have no osseointegration, only by the mechanical lock of the screw thread. And then the pilot drill, sometimes we have to install the mini screw because of using the pilot drill, but mostly we have the mechanical installation only by the hand driver. Growing vision, it's okay, but mostly we are using the test in the adult patient, and because of the missing teeth and the increasing use of the application of the TAE is because of the missing tooth and the geriatric conservative approach. We have to apply the TAD for the application of the multidisciplinary approach, combination of the orthodontic treatment with the other kinds of the treatment strategies. Diameter is very small. Most of the diameters are less than 2 millimeters, and then the loading time is immediate loading can available. The characteristic of the TAD is very simple to use, immediately loadable, and can withstand the orthodontic forces in expansive, small dimension, and immobile and biocompatible, provide superior resolution than the traditional Anchorage, and we can use as the temporary Anchorage devices. Does not require compliance. You can imagine the face like Tom Cruise. You can see the central incisor here is deviated from the midline. So if you complete the orthodontic treatment like that, you can fail the result with a very less impressive about your treatment procedure. So the TAD can be used to drive the midline without doing extraction on the other side. By doing the TAD, you can compensate the midline, or you can compensate the occlusal plane, or you can compensate the vertical dimension of the faces. Most of the indications of the TAD is molar intrusion. Mostly we use the molar uprighting, and then the anterior open bite, anterior deep bite. Other cases we have to use to control the vertical dimension, and the transverse and the leveling of the transverse tipping of the occlusal plate. Actually, you have to use the intrude the molar. We have to mostly we use the TAD in maxilla. But the steep occlusal plane angle in mandible, we can use lack of incisor showing, lack of sufficient overjet. We have to consider artifacts to use the treatment objective and the treatment mechanics to apply the TADs in the case of the intrusion of the molars. According to the massive restriction of the anterior teeth, and then the management of the occlusal plane, we can face with the clockwise rotation of the both planes, just according to the mandibular plane and the occlusal plane. We have to expect about that the treatment objective and the visualized treatment objective of the treatment by the cephalometric analysis and the VTO done for the treatment planning. And then counterclockwise rotation of the mandible also seen on the upper jaw management of the TAD for high angle we can use to reduce the vertical dimension, and then also the tilting of the occlusal plane and mandibular plane. So we use the various kind of design of the spring incorporating with the TAD to intrude the molar just only on the right segment or the left segment, or segmental intrusion or the balancing of the occlusal plane by the transverse plane. And we also use the troubleshooting such like asymmetry expansion, and then the bodily movement of the teeth or a group of the teeth by using TAD, and then the agency of space closure, absolute anchorage in lingual orthodontics mostly we use, and forced eruption of the teeth sometimes we use. Asymmetric expansion by the TAD is very smart to use because of the TAD is placed in the palatal access, and the design of the appliance is very good and very smart to drive the total arch mechanics in the circular movement of the arch to close the spaces and to correct the midline also, and to retract the anterior teeth incorporated in the biomechanics of the TAD. So we use the lever arm. There you can see the various kind of lever arm. I would like to explain the lever arm. The height of the lever arm, the position of the TAD is different for this four slide because of the center of rotation and meant for the biomechanical planning. According to the biomechanical planning of the treatment planning, it decides the fulcrum and the center of rotation by the position of the TAD according to the center of resistance and the lever arm. So palatal TAD can also be used to retract the posterior teeth to distal movement. Only one TAD in the palate, but you can drive most of the molars into the distal. Very good and very smart way. And you can intrude the buccal teeth by using of the TAD on both sides. In the case of the open bite treatment, it is very good and very simple mechanics, and we can remove easily the TAD after the open bite movement and already corrected the vertical dimension of the open bite treatment. With the expansion and the intrusion of the buccal segment incorporated the mechanics of the TADs. And we use the TAD in the anchorage reinforcement to retract the buccally erupted canine into the extractor space to control the anchorage of the molar by the TAD with the wires, and to retract the canine into the space very easily by the coil spring. And then the coil spring can drive the canine into the right spaces. And also we have to apply the TAD palatally to intrude the molar, only the power chain and the lingual buttons. And we have no brackets here at all, but we can intrude two teeth by only one TAD in the palatal side. So the palatal aspect of the intrusion and the molar priting and the retraction of the posterior teeth can only easily done by the TAD. And then the buccal access of the TAD we use to distribute the movement of the molar by only one TAD, and the spring can drive the molar according to the appliance design and decided by the mechanical planning according to the treatment plan. But we cannot use the TAD in the systemic disease such as the diabetes, osteoporosis, osteomyelitis, large dyscrasia, and the patient undergoing the radiotherapy and arches, pathology in the intended placement site, insufficient space for the insertion of T80 when the root become closer and less than 2 or 3 millimeter, and there is the deficient quality of bone here that plan for the T80 insertion. So I would like to explain more about the anatomical consideration to insert the TAD into the bone. So you can see the distance from the CEJ. There is a parallel relationship of the artery, greater palatine artery, greater palatine vein, and greater palatine nerve in the range of 12.74 millimeter from the distance of the CEJ in the palate. So, but there is a different types of the bone here. So we have to take care about the AVN plexus. Its relation of the insertion of the site must not be as high as 12 millimeter. In the palate, the thickness of the mucosa is the median palatine suture is also become thicker and thicker when the CEJ far from the CEJ of the central incisor. So we have to make sure that the cortical bone thickness, mostly we insert it between the 5 and 6, but also sometimes we place between 4 and 5. And the buccal cortex is around about 1 to 1.5 millimeter thickness of the cortical bone. And then the palatal side, you have 1 to 1.5 millimeter thick. 5 and 6, cortical bone thickness is near the same. That side we have to use for the common side of the application of TAD to use as a skeletal anchorage to aid as a conventional orthodontic treatment to start up or foster treatment or the mechanical aid. 6 and 7 we mostly use. I would like to explain here the convex portion of the cortical bone have the thinner cortical bone thickness here. It less than 1 millimeter. But in conventional practice, we use 6 to 7 proximal area as a very rare insertion site. I would like to note that the interradicular distance between the root distance, we have to consider the mandible and the maxilla. In the mandible, there is more than 3 millimeter of the interradicular distance. In the 5 and 6 is away from the 6 millimeter distance from CEJ. Less than 6 millimeter, we cannot have enough space to insert the TAD. So we have to make sure that the TAD implantation in the buccal side of the mandible, you have to make sure that at least 6 millimeter from CEJ is the very safer way to insert the TAD. Now you can see the mandibular teeth, more than 6 millimeter, the root distance is enough to insert the TAD. So I will explain the insertion technique on. The insertion technique of the TAD is we have to examine the patient at first in the implant site and then the decision making where to insert the TAD and then the anesthesia. Anesthesia is very simple. We can use the 1/3 of the 1.8 millimeter cartridge for infiltration injection, and then insertion is very simple with using the hand driver, and then direct loading or loading after the 45 week is the conventional method. So we have to make the hand driver against the thenar or hypothenar muscle and to press and to push into the driver in the hand, and the palm and thumb grip, and then you have to drive with the index and thumb finger to drive this screw by the manual. The insertion technique is if you insertion the screw perpendicular to the bone surface is very good when in cutting the cortex, and perform a 1 to 2 millimeter initial biting of the bone, and you have to change to 50 to 70 degree from occlusal plane, then centering drilling by the hand driver is okay. So there is a controversy how much degree of the insertion of the TAD we have to use. Is there controversy, still controversy? But most of the textbook says that 45 degree angle to the tooth long axis is very good and convenient, and most of the researchers done their researches, and they talk about that the 90 degree implantation to the bone surface is very good and acceptable. Most of the researchers says that different degrees, and they denoted that the 60 degree is good. So there another way of thinking is the degree. When the degree is defined, they define that Ravi Manda defined that the bone surface, and then Yon Chapak from the Korea, they denoted that the angulation from the occlusal plane, and then the Professor Key at the Yonsei University, he talked about that the tooth long axis is a very convenient way to decide the insertion angle from the tooth long axis is very convenient to place the TAD to decide the insertion angle. So when to insert into the palatal region, we have to use the lingual driver. And then the top driver we have to need, because the insertion top, if we have some excessive insertion top, the implant can break easily. So the top control must be the convenient way to make the contraindication to be dissolved. And then the motorized driver can available, and the battery can drive easily, and then it has the manual driver tips, and also they have the control tip for the lingual access. The insertion guide, some of the researchers invented for the TAD angle by the insertion guide. The Kim's is Kim is the first man to invent the insertion guide for the TAD into the placement of the TAD orthodontically. The palatal screw placement, also by the lingual driver with the control tip, is mostly at the palatal suture and the parapalatal suture region. And the incisor screw from the Onco, they use the buckle shaft, flat buckle shaft assessment, and with the 1.2 millimeter screw, and they use a very small screw to test the buckle bone according to the anatomy, and for the root to the convenient way to assess the anatomy. We have to consider about that the wobbling of the screw. We have to avoid it, because of the wobbling of the screw can make you have to fail the procedure according to the wobbling. Okay, now I would like to explain about the biological response to TAD. When to insert the TAD into the bone will be response, and the body will be response. So the response to the osteointegrated implant is very big, and sometimes it takes immediate response, and after 1 day, and after 3 to 5 days, and 1 to 4 weeks, we have to face with the biological response from the body to TADs. But most of the TADs is placed by mechanically retained, so we can face with the problems by the biological response and the attachment of the osteoblast to titanium surface, not so severe like as the dental implant, and the bone remodeling can done after the 1 to 4 weeks. Now the research are done for the implant placement or the placement of the meniscus according to the biodegradable materials. Mostly the biodegradable material we can place the TAD, and then the TAD already dissolved by the bone, and the biological response, the TAD will dissolve automatically. The material are invented by the acetic acid PLA and the polyglycolic acid BGA are derivatives of the cyclic diether of glycol and lactic acid and are produced by the ring opening polymerization. In the ratio of the different range of PLA BGA, we use as the polyacetic, polylactic and glycolic acid implant and 75 by 25 and lactic 75, glycolic 25, lactic 50 and glycolic 50, lactic 82 and glycolic 18 and lactic 90 and glycolic 10 ratio were invented. Glycolic portion of the content is lesser, the screw will retain more in the bond longer. So I would like to explain more about the different types of head from different company. There are different types of heads, different type of size, and different types of screw type, and then different type of the thread, and different type of the thread distance, and different type of thread character from the different company in the world. Most of the type have the coil spring head, and the most of the type has the power chain head. And then most of the screw are cylindrical type, most of the screw are taper type. The Titan is the Forrester Dent products and mostly used, and it was the micro implant, and they have the 4 head types for the different types of treatment. Alpha's mini implant is done by the Dr. Bob Nelson. She's a very great researcher and then a biomechanic expert, and she also invented the different types of head for the Alpha's implant for using in their university, hospital, and now available as commercially. And then also technology also produces spider screw and microimplant by Leon is the product of the Italy. And then the Thomas Pin is the Detorum, very famous company of the orthodontic products. They use Jessamolden as screw, and head of the Thomas Pin can be coupled with the different orthodontic appliances. The geotop system, it is the products of the geomat we can get here from Zizowa company, and it is also the different types of head, mostly by the spring type and elastic type, and also the bracket type head can available here. Another type is the Anchorage. Anchorage is also, it has also the head, and they have also the head with the hooks for the spring attachment. Another famous brand is Orus from Korea and distributed by the Henry Shea, and it has also the dual thread collector. The dual thread collector is more anchorable in the cortex region. It has the extra thread. KLS Martin also produced the mini screw with different types of head and different type of length and different type of diameter. Biomaterial also have the ACR series. We can use as the bone screw or the mini screw or like as a tat. But last but not least, the Epso Anchor is also the famous brand. It's produced by the Dentos from Daegu, Korea. He is an inventor of Dentos company. Is my teacher, Professor Hee Kyung, who has done most of the research, and he produced the different types of heads and different types of screw, mostly used in the Mahidol University Hospital. And they produce a lot of the screw with the pure titanium. And the wood screw also produced with the self-threading. in the diameter of 2.07 millimeter, 2.09 millimeter, and 2.011 millimeter. And you have to think of the screw size and screw length, screw head type, and thread type before you choose the system to decide for the application of the TED into your orthodontic practice. And I would like to explain about the risks and complication of the TED in clinical orthodontics. The TED is very small, but we have some problems. The failure rate is 5% in the case of the application of TED in the daily practice. Mostly we have to face with the fracture of the screw when the screw is small, less than 1.4 millimeter in diameter, and the screw failure can be faced with in the clinical situation when the mucosa is very thick or mucosal encroachment or the inflammation sign is the response of the biology, and then the damage of the hard tissue according to the wrong infiltration into the root surface or sigmoidum or into the pulp, and it can be damage to the tooth. And then the damage of the soft tissue also occur when the head is very long and the mucosal irritation and the ulcer will be the resulting effect. The tooth movement to the dentulous area because of the excessive force application to the TED's head, and the pain and discomfort after implantation is we have to face, but the patient can feel only 1 to 2 days. It can becomes over. But the pain still persists. We can use the analgesic. The fracture of the screw, when the diameter of the screw is small, less than 1.4 millimeter, and sometimes we can see the osseous tissue and between the threads after removal of the screw. And then the factor related with the screw failure is force factor and technical factor. Technical factors are the screw diameter, screw length. I have already explained about that. The taper, insertion method, and insertion torque. Insertion torque is the most important thing, I think. And then the direction and the loading of the force is the critical thing incorporated in the planning of the treatment. And then the host factor, we have to select very carefully for the placement of the TED, in which person we use, the systemic disease and age of the patient, and then the smoking habit. We have to make sure that to exclude the patient for the application of TED, and then the oral hygiene control in one side, and then the cortical bone thickness is the major factors to decide the implant insertion. And then the damage of hard tissue is very common, but in 5% of the cases we faced with the failure, and the possible hard to periodontal tissue is no serious problem. And then the healing of the sigmoidum after an injury with the meniscus is a time-dependent phenomenon. Techniques for avoiding the root damage, we have to use the minimum local anesthesia, placement of a meniscus into the wider interradicular area, choosing as small and short screw as possible, and we have to make the oblique insertion of the meniscus, and then the placing with the self-tapping method, and using a screwdriver with the torque limiter. And then the damage of soft tissue is mostly seen, and then the screw placed through the non-keratinized gingiva or the movable gingiva stimulate the surrounding soft tissue, and sometimes evoke the peri-implantitis in the research. They have found that the screw are often covered with the surrounding movable mucosa, and it will become the cause of pain and discomfort. Therefore, the meniscus had better be implanted in the range of the attached and the keratinized gingiva is a better way to exclude the complication. The pain and discomfort, the placement and the removal of the meniscus are not invasive, and most patients do not feel pain during and after implantation. The corrodor found in the 2000 Nicole periosteal flap surgery reported pain 1 day after the implantation, and 25% of the patient felt slight pain immediately after the implantation. And I would like to explain more on the adverse application of the TAT in the use of the palatal expansion, such as the MAPI, now the MSE and maxillary skeletal expander, invented by the Professor Wilmot from the UCLA, and he invented and marketed the MSE2 now in the 2017, and he used drastically to open the mid-palatine suture in adult by using the 4 TAT in the palate and expansion screw incorporated in his appliance. And limb screw also for very useful to retract the anterior teeth by the palatal access by using the 2 screw with the wings of the palatal instrument. And then Professor Lim also from the Chelsea University, and I met him at the Bali conference at the 2015, and he explained about some more about the limb screw and uses of the advanced application of the limb screw in the clinical application. So the last part and important is the biomechanics with the TATs. So this is in micro-implant Anchorage mechanics. The relationship between the line of the action of the forces and the center of resistance define the type of the tooth movement. A force passing through the center of the resistance causing translation, and those passing off the center cause rotation or tipping. So we have to, location of the implant can be determined according to the desired mechanics. The Ravi explained me about the biomechanics of the TATs, and then is Decibel Flavio derived from the Connecticut University. They use a lot of biomechanical application in the Connecticut University, and they presented about the 2,000 cases of their hospital using the TAT and the different types of biomechanics in the presentation in the Wally plan of the Donny Congress. And I learned the procedures, most of the procedures I used in my clinic is from the Professor Ki Jung Lee from Yonsei University, Seoul, Korea. I met him so many times in the international conference, and he becomes my mentors in the field of the TAT, and I use mostly the TAT by the help of the Professor Key, and he is mostly kind to me to use his monograph in this presentation. So I thank you, Professor Key, here again to use his properties as my presentation. The KEYS protocol, I would like to share his protocol. The KEYS protocol is very easy to learn and easy to apply clinically. He used 1 TAT between 5 and 6 from 6 mm to 10 mm distance to retract the anterior teeth with the controlled tipping in the center of rotation by the application of the TAT under the center of rotation of the arches. KEYS protocol 2 is root movement of the anterior teeth by using the application of TAT between the 5 and 6, but the fulcrum of the center of rotation by the use of the different types of the power arm. Actually, this is not his technique. This technique is his teacher's Professor Yong Chebak's technique, but he used the technique very lovely, and he has become expert in this technique for the root movement by using that. And bodily retraction that we call today is en masse retraction of the anterior teeth when we have to extract the first permanent premolar. And in conventional practice, firstly we move the canine into the extracted space of the first premolar, and then the incisor to retract again. So we take 8 months for canine retraction and another 8 months for the incisor retraction. So the 16 months can take for the anterior teeth retraction in the conventional cases. That can help you for the whole 6 teeth to retract in 3 months or 4 months by using the Atmos retraction with the power arm along the center of rotation by the retraction very massively in the short time. Anterior retraction and massing in French language, it is the occlusal-gingival position of the teeth, the height of the anterior hook, and the amount of the torque curve given on the arch wire. The insertion side should be 8 to 10 mm. That was the distance of the center of rotation for the admassive retraction in the gingival to the arch wire when retracting the 6 anterior teeth. That is defined by the Hyosun Park from the Daegu, Korea, and Kyungbu University professor. Professor Ki also used the various kind of tooth movement in protocol form by using the two tests between 5 and 6. Protocol 5 is only one test for the intrusion. Protocol 6, between 5 and 6, and between occlusal hook is 3 and 4. So two tests used. And then molar uprighting. He used the mini-screw assisted push spring to upright the molar using a tag. And then the mini-screw assisted uprighting spring, MAUS, to upright the molar at the end of the arch. And then the mini-screw assisted root spring, MAS. He used two tests for the uprighting molar. I would like to make some information. The take-home message of my presentation is that are removed once they completed their function in the treatment regime, generally made of titanium alloy through the attached gingival mucosa using a manual driver or a retraction handpieces with torque control, mostly used for anterior retraction or advanced retraction, controversies among the insertion techniques and the placements in relation. This is my career path and then the learning curve made up of this global expert, including the Professor Ravi Nanda from the Connecticut University, and Professor Eric Liu from Taiwan, Professor Simon Littlewood from the Manchester University, Professor Takashi Ono from TMDU, Professor Womon from UCLA, and Professor Kwanchu Chwai from Yonsei University, and Professor KJ, and then Professor Lin and Professor Liao from Taiwan. They are my mentor in the field of TAD. This is my reference, and thank you. This is my proud to be a student and meeting the orthodontics legend, William Profit, at the venue of the Asia Pacific Conference. This is my proud as being an orthodontist and standing in Myanmar as doing practice in the field of orthodontics. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your impressive lecture and messages, Dr. Danai. Now we are going to move the question and answer section. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask without any hesitation. Thank you.
General practice now and then allow way or the orthopedic magia who look at a sanani lava sapo a young advanced method to Yamala share. Tomorrow Facebook and the messenger in the main and I'll choose one.
So now, and I would like to announce that today's ceremony is successfully finished well. Thank you. Sorry. invite Dr. Naitun to present letter of appreciation for the presenter, Dr. Danai.